One of the best things about a new season is obviously the vertical progression in the new chase items we get to go after. After all, it is an MMO, so everyone loves the number go up and be more demouge, basically. So we'll go over the dungeons as well as the new raid, so Manaforge, Omega, and kind of have a look, at all the trinkets and things like that. So the first thing I'll keep in mind, though, is obviously we're only really going to be looking for one ring and trinkets, any cantrip weapons or weapons in general that might, sort of suit certain stats. Because everything else is more predetermined than normal. I mean, there's always a best in slot list anyway, but the cloak's going to be taken up with the Reshi wraps, obviously. There's a ring, much like Jaster's, that is a cantrip ring that buffs the said Reshi wraps, so that's sort of pretty much all going to be everyone's standard. There's boots that do the same. There's a cantrip boots that further buff the Reshi wraps, alright? So that sort of predetermines that the wrist and belt are going to be your two embellishment slots. And even then, the Delve belt will be relevant at least for the first, however long until you get, your hero track belt that will replace it. And that may even come just from lucky drops in Mythic Plus and that as well. And there's very few, especially strength wearing cantrip weapons. So you're going to be starting off with most likely the crafted weapon anyway, and then pivoting out if you end up getting like more of the void here or whatever. This looks like it would be a cantrip item, like what the fuck are you talking about? Turns out this is literally just an on-use to loot corpses from an AoE, like a flavor cantrip. It's nothing actually relevant for combat. And it only has strength. Only strength. Only crit as the secondary stats here. Obviously, it's higher than, some other stats, but it is important to note that it's all just crit based. So, now, let's touch on the dungeons first, and then we can kind of go over, what's available. Arakara, the obvious choice and obvious one to make note of here, is Sackbrood. Now, it is in the dungeon journal. Everyone loved this back in Season 1, so it's going to be a hot ticket item for most people, I'd imagine. But physical damage users are going to be competing the strength agi people for Pacemaker, so maybe you use both, maybe you just use one, I'm not 100% sure. It is in the dungeon journal, but it is important to note that if for some reason it's not in the list to test at the moment, potentially that's intentional, I'm not 100% sure. But nonetheless, it is not there currently, so it is important to keep in mind. That. Now, as for the other dungeons, Dawnbreaker didn't really have too much going on. Priory is the obvious two. The Signet of the Priory for any 2-minute enjoyers was very powerful. And for tanks, you got Tome of Light's Devotion available again. Bloodgate is obviously where we get our Pacemaker from. So just like the current season we're in, Pacemaker will be another item we're going to have to run down and chase again. So I got very lucky. I got Pacemaker on Myth Track quite early on. So I don't think I'm going to be as lucky this time. Not looking forward to re-chasing that particular item, but hey, it's fun. It is what it is. Tajavesh didn't really have any too much like standouts, I'll be honest. I'm not really going to spend too much time going over these because, there wasn't really that many. I mean, I know maybe Org Evokers or whatever might like the secrets technique. This was sort of a thing for maybe tanks or something. It's helped be a bit more buffy, but no one, honestly, there was nothing to write home about. Halls of Atonement, a couple of interesting ones that I'm interested at least keeping an eye on. We've got Cursed Stone Idol. This is a shit ton of crit. Obviously, it gives us strength as well. I really like that it's on a 1.5 minute cooldown, as that will synchronize very nicely with, the Warriors' rest of their cooldowns. And most notably here as well is that's a lot of crit. And Colossus in particular has a lot of crit damage through cleave and things like that. There is certainly a world where this is at least on my radar to some capacity, because that is a large amount of crit strike, just to put it that way. So it'll be interesting. Gonna serve a little bit of a cheeky channel for a second before you go in and do your massive amount of damage, much similar to kind of like your puzzle box from back in the day in Dragonflight, right? So that's at least on my radar, like I mentioned. And then you also have Sunblood Amethyst, which for you casters, I don't know enough about casting, but this made my eyes and my ears perk up a little bit. Hopefully you guys don't have to deal with another Font of Power trinket where you got to stand still. Sorry, Arcane Mages, basically. But that's at least one that you want to keep an eye on in the negative way, like just see where it sits, because that'll certainly change your playstyle a little bit, or at least make you need to be a little bit more aware of min-maxing your damage through a font of power based trinket. And lastly, we have Echodome. Nothing really too much to write home here. There's a few trinkets that are nice. It's just damage related, right? But it really depends on where their tuning falls in, whether or not they're relevant. There is a cantrip weapon for Agi using polearm. So this is your, druids, survival hunter potentially. You've got a nice little damage proc to be able to blink through people like a warp stalker. Cool, sure, why not? Outside of that, nothing really too much to write home about. A couple of rings that are quite nice. Haste Master Enjoyers, so that's typically your Fury Warriors and Heart Shamans. I'm sure there's other Haste Master Enjoyers out there, but that is the dungeons. Now we need to move to the raid. So the Manaforge Omega, you'll see a pretty significant theme with all the trinkets here. Very much like Beacon to the Beyond from Sarkareth back in Dragonflight Season 2. The Eradicating Arcana Courts from the first boss. Honestly, typically these aren't going to be tuned too crazy. It's more of you'll sim it and be like, this does more damage. Sure, I'll take it temporarily. But a lot of the trinkets here have this component of deals more damage up to 5 targets. So you can see here, damage increased by 30% per additional enemy hit, up to 150, which is obviously your 5 targets. And it was a theme on all void-based things back in the day then as well. The Sarkareth trinket, like I mentioned, the Beacon to Beyond. And you'll see that similar running theme for a lot of the trinkets and cantrip effects in this raid as well. So it must be sort of the way cosmic damage kind of works. Sure, fine. But it is important to note that that's kind of an ongoing theme here. So as for the second boss, the Antenna, I mean, it's usable by all primary stat users, right? So strength, intellect, and agility. It's going to be granting crit. There's some chances for it to overlap. So it really boils down to, again, tuning. How often is the proc rate? How often is it likely to overlap? Where does that fit? It's just a tuning thing. Thematically, I mean, it sounds cool. It would be nice to have instances where your crit strike does overlap a little bit. But I think you'll find that this will be a middle of the road kind of, on the way to the bigger fish, so to speak, trinket that will be useful, but not really your best in slot or anything like that. And then lastly, you've got another trinket here that's just a healing trinket. That ain't me. We won't really cover healing or casters that much, honestly. We do have a cantrip weapon to at least note, and more importantly, that's going to make it even stricter for abilities and sort of things. Again, it really depends whether or not it's worth it. And tuning, aside, but you've got a little cheeky 2-set here. So your staff for intellect users is going to allow more cosmic damage, and it also might be worth for healing as well, as it will do some ally absorption for a 1.1 million, and it has a tier set as well involved with it. So if you get 2 pieces of it, then happy days. You'll also get 200% more effectiveness from it. So that is pretty good. 200% more is not the bad. Cosmic damage, and even the shielding, right, is 200% more on that is enough to at least be potentially pretty good. So that's one to keep an eye on. I've got a haste versus neck. Really not too much to write home about that from the lens of a warrior. Verse highs, sure. Even honestly for a prot, I just don't think they're gonna care too much about verse. I would rather have haste and crit still. As for that, the others are just, again, caster trinkets and tank trinket for Soulbinder's Embrace. Next we have Forge Weaver Araz. Now this bad boy has a couple of things. I mean, a fury based weapon for stats, mastery high and haste, cool. The ring here is also pretty nice. Again, haste mastery, but any mastery haste enjoyers from any class will be flying over that one. Thinking Fury Warriors and Heart Shamans. I think there's some locks in that as well that also prefer haste mastery. So any mastery enjoyers, that's a lot of mastery for a ring. This will be certainly on your radar. You also have Araz's Ritual Forge. Now this is sick, but it's on a freaking 2-minute cooldown and it won't synchronize with any of our cooldowns. Really annoying. But that's a lot of strength. So I don't know. Let's actually test. If we go to just a rogue, Araz's Ritual. Okay, cool. So no. It says it's for a rogue, but it still says strength. then maybe it won't work for that bit. Either way, the whole point was that's a shit ton of strength and it decays over 30 seconds. That would be so good. But it's a 2-minute cooldown, so it doesn't really jive with our other cooldowns. Again, purely down to tuning, but if this ends up being numerically the best, it's going to suck so much to have a 2-minute cooldown. Yeah, it always throws shit out of whack and it's very frustrating, but time will tell. Soul Hunters, this is the optional boss, so take that as a grain of salt because everyone's going to be doing it. Reason being is the Cantrip boots. Now, this is what I was talking about, where it directly buffs your Reshi Wraps, which is your new artifact cloak. And this is one of 2 items that kind of funnel into that. There's also a ring as well. Now, every armor type gets that. So obviously mail plate, leather, and cloth. And I can almost guarantee it's going to be everyone's kind of super favorite wrap. Stat weights lean slightly more towards arms as well. There's a lot of beneficial crit hasty sort of stuff here for arms, if I'm being perfectly honest. And given the state of how Fury is looking with their tier set, their general AoE cap, and their damage profile and stuff like that, yeah, I'm not too entirely sold for Fury for next tier at all. I think arms is going to extend its slight lead that it kind of already has, yeah, for the most part. Now, next we have Fractalus. Again, there's more Cantrip weapons because sure, why not? We had this staff before, whereas now it's the same one as a part of the, the 4 possible options for the set. But again, it's an int dagger, so it's only one hand, right? Same Cantrip effect, nothing changes in that regard, so cool. Trinkets, we have the first of the trinket that synchronizes with that Cantrip little 2-set thing, and that'll be the Diamantine Void Core. So this is where your spells have a chance to empower the Void Core, granting you a bunch of intellect for 15 seconds. This chance is increased by 25% while below 50% mana. Multiple applications may overlap. Oh, there's that multiple applications again. Now, that could end up being, obviously a lot of intellect below a certain point of mana. I don't know how relevant that is, but it's at least enough to worth mentioning, right? So cool. We also have Unyielding Nether Prism. Now, again, the whole does affects, up to a certain number of players. So the 5-stack thing is relevant here as again. You've got your harmful abilities, draw focus void through the prism and deal a bunch of cosmic damage split between your target and nearby enemies. Damage increased by blah up to 5 targets. This effect may occur every 10 seconds, so it's a strict kind of 10-second sort of cooldown. And each time it happens, it stacks up to 15 times, and then you can use it to consume it all for your strength per stack for 20 seconds. Now, this is a strength. If it stacks up to 15 times, that ends up being what? 15 times 3 is around 45k strength. So that also sounds very good, like the Forge Weaver Araz trinket that we were talking about. But it doesn't suffer from being a 2-minute cooldown or anything. It does, however, suffer that if you want to get all the way to 15 stacks, it needs to be 150 seconds. Which unfortunately, that is not 90 seconds. So, yeah, I mean, same sort of concept, right? If it can occur once every 10 seconds, then it takes 15 stacks. I mean, it might end up being good, but there's also, you got to remember, there's no secondary stats on it whatsoever. The only thing you're getting out of this is that little proc and the potential on use. The 20-second cooldown part's really nice, so it does mean, you can just sort of get as many stacks as you possibly can, and then every time you're 1.5 minutes up, you're just going to send it. Even if it's not at the full 45, and it may be only, 20k strength or something like that, that might actually still be somewhat worth it, but again, time will tell. Cool idea, and I do like the idea that you could just hold off for a certain length of time and decide, I just want to use it for this massive, massive big pack that's coming up. So I'm going to not use it for this next pack, and I'll just go for this massive wombo combo that does a juicy amount of strength and things like that. And who knows, there might even be encounters in the raid where there's a certain burn phase at a particular point with a damage amp, and you're just like, I'm going to forego hitting it on cooldown because I want to build up this big, massive strength buff aligned with a damage amp and all my other cooldowns. there's certainly a world where that could exist, so time will tell. As for the next boss along, Nexus King Salada, that guy. Not really too much to write home about. There's a nice mastery high again, relevant for your frost decays, maybe for fury because the mastery high is very nice. But outside of that, I mean, what it is, it's fun. We have another oathboundy sort of trinket. So this is where equip, become oathbound to a nearby ally every 30 seconds. Directly healing the ally fulfills the oath and grants you a bunch of intellect, and shield your ally for 100% of the overhealing done. Really cool, but obviously it's a random ally. So this is kind of, given that it's not like targeted, I don't think this is going to be very good. It sounds cool on paper, very, very, very cool, but it should be a way to decide who you're going to be oathbound to, would be my preferred way of making that kind of function. We have another trinket here, which is compel the Oathbound Shadow Guard squad to annihilate your target, dealing 8 million cosmic damage split between them. 8 million is a very large amount, and then it also does the whole damage increase by 30 seconds for additional blah blah blah. You get the idea. This is almost like Beacon from the Beyond 2.0. It's literally almost exactly like that, to be honest. So yeah, cool. 8 million cosmic damage is a lot, and so there were a lot of tanks that typically ran Beacon back in the day because it just did a lot of this upfront damage. It looks like there's not a cast time this time either, so you don't have to do a cast like Beacon did. Interesting. I don't know. I think this certainly is a trinket that will be on some people's radar somewhere along the way, because it's not fucking bad. Now, we get to our last boss. And again, there's a nice weapon, I suppose. I mean, it looks kind of janky and weird. It's just big, giant purple hammer. But the main key things to be chasing here is your ring. So this is going to be like the next Jester Diamond. Again, crit and haste, super incentivizes arms once more. Because the stat weights are just, all these cantrip items just slightly edge more towards arms. But you can see here your powers of the Reshi Wraps also reduce cosmic damage taken by 50% for 20 seconds or until blah 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 amount of damage is done. So again, another ring that's pretty much going to be the standard go-to because you want to be buffing the shit out of your Reshi Wraps and that as well. So cosmic damage taken by reduced taken by 50% is pretty significant. I don't know if it's going to be mandatory, but it is enough to at least be like, all right, you're probably going to some extent, have that, right? Because that's pretty nice. We have all-around nucleus. Not really too much to write home about because I'm pretty sure this is, yeah, the healing. So it's not really, it looks like a tank trinket actually. Fatal damage not exceeding blah, blah, blah. Restores you to temp. Yep, definitely tank trinket. The main one that we want to get to is Screams of the Forgotten Sky. Now, we're partially coming into this final trinket here because we have to factor in that the end boss trinkets are typically always your go-tos, your Eye of Kazans. To a lesser extent, you know, House of Cards, like you can just generally get an idea that trinkets from these last three bosses are typically going to be a bit more stronger than the first couple of bosses, right? Part parcel of that, again, Crit Strike slightly edges more towards Arms and Fury. And then we have the Equip, where harmful spells and effects have a chance to target an Abyssal Comet. Does decent amount of cosmic damage, and it amps their gravity, which increases the damage of future comets by 5%. So that's pretty cool. I don't know if that 5% stacks. It doesn't seem to when I did testing on dummies. I could have also just not hit it long enough. I'm not 100% sure. But upon death, those enemies will explode and then deal cosmic damage again per gravity stack. So it's clearly stacks then. Okay, I just didn't attack it long enough. So you can stack and amp up your cosmic damage to do increased damage by 5% each time. And then upon death, they do a damage per stack up to the 5 targets. You get the idea, same usual thing. So you can stack it up to an extra 5, an extra 25% damage total. That's really cool. I have a feeling that this will most likely be probably the more stronger side of the trinkets. Less relevant on bosses because you're just relying purely on the further procs increasing up to 25%. So there's a almost like a execute element to it where you know, once you've maxed out your 25% increased damage from all the stacks, then yeah, that could be pretty cool, the gravity stacks. Then in Mythic Plus though, that could be really, really good. Because anytime there's funnel damage or just general, you know, cannon fodder that are going to get killed very quickly, it means something like this trinket is certainly going to proc lots of these explosions. And that's all the trinkets. Yeah, pretty excited and looking forward to it. Like I said, my initial reaction is very much get familiar and comfortable with arms, because arms is definitely going to be probably what everyone's running for sure. Now, while I am here, I'm going to quickly look for, I can't remember where it was from. I'm definitely not stalling while I'm looking for it. I'm trying to find where the more comes from. But I didn't see it as we were going through. Oh no, there you go. It's a very rare, the more of the void. It's from our second last boss, so very rare weapon. It sounds like it would be cool, but it seems to be more of the cosmetic side of things. The cantrip here is actually just you right click the more and it loots everything around you. Like, I mean, it looks cool, sure. I mean, I'll take it. But again, I don't understand why it's a very rare. It also is just the standard kind of weapon, right? I thought maybe it was because it had higher weapon damage, or maybe the DPS on it was a bit skewed differently. The speed's the same, the damage is the same as every other weapon. If I go to, say, I think Fractalus had a two-hand weapon. Where's the two-hand weapon? Here we go. If I have a look at this particular no, that's a AG one. Here we go, strength one. So you can see 4 out of 6 is 23,926. And then if I go to this, it's still 23,926. So it's the same damage variance, it's the same speed. It's the same main stat. There's 7,848 strength, same stamina. Has the secondary stats still. I don't know why it's in the very rare category. It could just be that it looks quirky and cool. So maybe that's why. But nonetheless, that's the final cantrip item. Very exciting. But you can see now where I'm sort of positioning that idea again, where it's like a lot of our slots are sort of relatively predetermined, if I'm honest, because Rescue Wraps will take the cloak. Our 2 cantrips are most likely going to wind up long term to be wrist and belt, and then the boots will obviously be the cantrip boots for buffing the Rescue Wraps. You've got a ring that does the same. The tier set as normal will be all the usual tier set slots, and all you're really looking for is 1 ring, 1 neck, and then the 2 trinkets, and then whatever weapon you end up getting your hands on. And to begin with, it'll definitely be crafted. But that's what we're looking at. So let me know what you guys think. Is there any particular items that you've been super excited to see in action? And apart from that, yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.